Today I want to show you some winterization tips for my 2016 Forest River rPod. Quick overview, we've had this thing for about 2 to 3 years now, and this is the RP176 model. It's got 2 forward bunks, a full-size bed in the back that converts to a dinette set. We've had it, like I said, about 2 or 3 years. Been a great setup for camping for us. I've got a family of 4, so my wife and 2 kids. Kids are sleeping up front in the bunks, which has been great. And then my wife and I in the back, obviously. We haven't had any trouble really out of this thing. We've replaced the tires as soon as we bought it. I'm pretty religious about checking wheel bearings and making sure the brakes are functioning right. I rebuilt all those last year. All right, so to start us off here, before we get going with the interior stuff and internal mechanical things of winterizing, we're gonna get it washed. So we'll show kind of a time lapse here. Front, back, sides, kind of get all the bird poop off, any dead bugs, just to kind of keep it off. Typically the biggest threat to any RV or camper van or anything like that is water. And so a lot of times what I'll do, especially leading up once a year going into the winter time when I'm winterizing, is I check all the seals. I'll go around the outside, check all the windows, check the tops especially. There's a special caulk that we use on the top called Dicor, D-I-C-O-R. And it's like a lap sealant that's self-leveling. You guys can Google it. Pretty expensive for what it is. Any of my caulking jobs that I do around this thing, they're not the cleanest. I'm not a professional. I'm a backyard dad, camper guy, you know, so I'm not a professional at any of this stuff. But what I do is functional, and it works, and it keeps the water out. So we're gonna move on and start winterizing the plumbing systems. And we're gonna start with the outside water heater. One of the first things we've got to do is drain the main system, which is accessible via the low point drain. All right, now that we've got both low port drains open, so next thing we're going to do is open up the city water connection, and we're going to use a blowout plug, which you can get at any hardware store or Walmart or anything that sells RV parts. We're going to go ahead and open this up, and we're going to get this plugged in, screwed in to the city connection. Once we get that screwed in tight, we take our air compressor, which again, this thing is set to 20 psi or lower. You do not want high pressure here, very low pressure setting. So we're gonna go ahead and, actually we're gonna take this fitting off, and we're gonna blow air. Plug this in here and lightly blow air through this. Now that we have the water blown out of the city connection, we're gonna go ahead and open up the water heater here, and there's an Anoid Rod that we're going to go ahead and pull out. There's going to be quite a bit of water that comes out of here, so make sure your area is prepared for that. I'm using a 1 1/8 inch socket here, and we're going to go ahead and pull this out. Shouldn't be in there super tight, but tight enough. As you can see, we're going to open up the pop-off drain here, which helps it just to drain a little bit faster for us. So this will run, again, this is about 8 gallons, 7 to 8 gallons, depending on your water heater. And you can see while that drains, you can see our old Anoid Rod, which doesn't look bad. It's got some sediment on it, but depending on the water in your area. All right, guys, so we're inside the rPod now. Underneath my dinette seating is the main compartment for the water heater and furnace. So in here, this is where I was talking about. This is our hot water and our cold water valve assembly. We are going to turn off all the valves here so that when we suck up with the antifreeze, we are not getting it into the water heater. Sorry, I had to switch around the camera. So on this side, here is the hot water heater. I'm going to turn that valve. Down here's the cold water, which really shouldn't have to be turned, but I turn them anyways, just so there's nothing that backflows in there. And then there's one more valve here that splits the two, and that can remain open as long as these 2 valves are closed there. We're in good shape. All right, guys, so now we're down underneath our kitchen sink area, and we're going to pull out, this is our main hose that connects to our water pump, and that feeds back and around, and it has a bypass valve that allows us to either take water from the water tank itself or the water heater. There's a valve in here, as I'm hopefully showing you with some B-roll, but I'm going to go ahead and turn that valve now. Reach in here, So now when I kick on the water pump, it will suck water from this particular port instead of through the tank. So what we'll do is, I'm using just a standard antifreeze. I think I got this from Tractor Supply. Nothing extraordinary here, but this will typically take, as I recall, about a gallon, maybe a little bit more. All right, so we've got the valve back here open. We're going to go ahead and insert our hose into the tank of antifreeze. We've got that valve open and we got the antifreeze bottle going. We're going to set that up. It's kind of hard to film and do all this, but we're going to set that up and I'm going to flip on the water pump. We're going to insert this all the way down until you can hear it kind of changing. And now we're sucking up antifreeze. We're going to go outside and check our low point drains. Those should still be open, and go ahead and close those off. All right, guys, we kind of did that fast. I apologize, but we've got the jug of antifreeze still down here. I turned off the water pump, and I went outside to verify that we had coolant, antifreeze coming out of our low point drains on the bottom. I verified that we're all good. So I went ahead and closed those ports on the outside. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn back on the water pump, and I'm going to continue to suck in antifreeze through this line, and I'm going to turn on each water appliance and until we get pink coming out. All right, so we're going to turn on the water pump here. We're going to turn on this valve, and we're going to make sure that it should start pouring some pink stuff here. That's good. Turn that off. We're going to turn off the water pump for just a quick second because I am running low on antifreeze here. Most of it went outside on my low port drain. I'm going to pull this out and switch to my other jug. Hard to do this one-handed. Switch to our other jug here. And we're going to go ahead and open the bathroom up. And we're going to go ahead and flush the toilet and turn on the shower here and make sure we get antifreeze coming out of this. All right, and the last thing we're going to do is just going to go ahead and pour a little bit of antifreeze down the main drains, even though that's pretty much just going to run into the gray tank, but I've drained the gray tank already at this point, but just to make sure there's a little bit in there, hit it in that sink there. I'm going to put a little bit down the main tub drain here. Just a little bit, doesn't need much. Just to take any water that's going down the drain into the gray tank, keep that out. It's also important, any personal items, hygiene products like these lotions and such, make sure they come out. They will freeze and bust, and you'll have a mess if you don't over the winter time. So we'll get those taken out of here too. Other items to note for winterization: always get your fridge. Obviously, take all your food, belongings like that out of here. I emptied the fridge. Make sure there is still some water back there in the back that's drained, so I'll probably end up sliding this piece out and putting that aside. And then I always prop open the fridge. You never want to close it all the way, just because you get some smells and stuff like that in there, trap moisture. Don't want that to happen. So we'll let that kind of hang open there, and that's just kind of a tip for your fridge. Just kind of a public service announcement. I've got one of these little electric heaters. These things are super cheap, 20 bucks or something like that at Lowe's or Home Depot. If you're camping, if you're boondocking, this is not going to work. But if you are camping at a campground where you have power, these are a great alternative to running your actual propane heaters and your electric heater. They're just quieter, and they heat the cab of this thing up super fast. So it's a cool thing. Look into it. All right, guys, we're back outside here. I'm gonna go ahead and put back in our Anoid Rod now that everything is drained. No more dripping. Get that started by hand. I do typically keep that Teflon tape on it, but in this case, we got plenty on there, so we're good to go. We're going to tighten this down. Don't want to over tighten this. We're just going to kind of snug it up here so we can't get any more good turns out of it. And we'll check it again in the spring when we de-winterize and make sure that we have no leaks or anything like that coming from there. So I think that's all set up at this point. We're making sure, again, that our water tanks are drained, our wastewater holding tanks are drained, your gray water and your black water. And those are all good in my case. So on to the next step. So in closing, guys, I kind of just wanted to share what I do to winterize my rPod. Again, I'm not perfect at this, but it's served me well for the last few years. I have no frozen pipes or anything like that. A lot of times I've gotten asked, or I've thought about the idea of just blowing out all the lines with just air. And I've gone both ways on that, but ultimately I've just decided the antifreeze kind of works best for me. It's not that time consuming. It's just good peace of mind. When I take it out in the springtime, it's important to kind of flush all that out, really hook it up to the fresh water source and really flush it out for a good few minutes just to let that antifreeze get out. We don't drink water out of this rPod, out of any of the systems on this thing, so that's usually not a big concern for us. We bring bottled water or jugs or whatever. But for bathing and dishes and that kind of stuff, we don't want any of that antifreeze left in the line. So in closing, I hope this video was helpful and informative. If you have questions or comments, post them down below. I'll do my best to get back to you. Let me know if you guys want kind of a typed up winterization guide. Again, it's kind of step by step on what I have and what I use, just to kind of remind myself every year what needs to be done. So until next time, guys, we'll see you on the next video. Thanks.